Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I missed y'all. Well, kind of, some of y'all. But so this video is gonna be a little bit different. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Norma Liz. And for those of you who do know me, thank you for watching and thank you for your support. Always appreciate your support. Thank you so much. So I hope y'all enjoy, and this is really just going to be my testimony. I'm going to start pretty much from beginning to end, so grab your popcorn, grab something to snack on, and hopefully you get something from it. I had to get the hair out my face. And y'all excuse my Y'all, so excuse my face. My eyes are a little puffy because I'm really tired because I'm in the process of moving right now and I just have had a lot going on. But anywho, so growing up, I'm gonna start off with a little bit about me, who I am, for those of you who don't know me. So I am a single mom of a beautiful little girl named Zoe, and I'm 27 years old right now. Oh my gosh, yeah, I'm 27. So I'm 27. I'm an identical twin, and I'm Salvadorian, so representing for Central America. And so both of my parents were born in El Salvador and they came here. And I'm just a fun, energetic, lovable person. I love to make friends, and I love God. I love going to church, and that's pretty much it. So just to dive right into my story, I grew up in a very toxic home, you could say, and my dad was an alcoholic. He was very abusive. He was a violent man. And so we grew up, so basically the first 6 years of my life, I think I was about 6 years old, but the first 6 years of my life was a very traumatizing. My dad was in and out of jail. You know, he beat my mom, and it just was a very scary thing. You know, I'm sure you can imagine as a child going through that. If you've never experienced it, it's definitely very traumatizing. So one day my mom finally got the courage to leave. She met a really good friend who I call my aunt. I refer to her as my aunt. She noticed one day that my mom had bruises on her arm, and she knew that she needed to help. And so she found a way to get us an apartment in Arlington. It's a suburb outside of Dallas. And so we moved. One day I just remember grabbing all of our stuff while my dad was away at work, and we put all our stuff in the car and drove off. And I remember thinking it was like we were just starting a whole new life and going to another state, but it was really just 30 minutes away. But so when we got there, we didn't have any furniture. We, you know, had to sleep on the floor, and it was very cold. But God always provided and used people to bring food and things like that to help provide. And eventually my twin sister and I, we started going to, when we moved to the other apartments after that, we started going to this little Sunday school that they had. I think it was Vacation Bible School, but it was inside of an apartment, and we had Sunday school in there. So we really liked it, and my mom would stay home, of course. But when it was over, we decided to ask my mom to take us to church. We wanted to go to a church. So at the time, she was dating this guy, and he found a bilingual church because she was trying to learn English. She would stay home and do Inglés sin barreras. I don't know if any of y'all remember that. So we started going to this church, which eventually became our home church. Now, at this church was the first time that I ever heard about Jesus, God. Everything was new to me. But more importantly, this was the first time that I ever experienced and I knew now that spirits and demons were very real. We experienced something that was, honestly, it's supernatural, and it may be a little bit too deep for some of y'all, so I'll save that maybe for another video another day. But basically, the reason that my mom was being violent towards my sister and I was because of the environment we were in before and how my dad treated her. And I do believe that it was because she had a really bad spirit and those demons were taking over. And so she was freed from that, and honestly, it was life-changing. We began to see the change in our lives, and everything was great. And one day, she met my stepdad, who became my stepdad, and that's who I refer to as dad. That's who I call dad. If in any of my videos I say dad, sometimes I'm referring to him. In my opinion, he was honestly the best example of how a stepfather should be, and how, you know, he never treated us any different. He never referred to us as stepdaughters or anything of that nature. He was our dad and we were his daughters, and he just loved us. That was all. With having him in our lives, I was able to have my room for the first time ever. I was able to live in a house and have my own room because of him. And I learned how to cook. I learned a lot of life lessons with him. And, you know, it's after that, a few years down the line, about my junior year in high school, my mom and dad split up, and it was really bad, and I won't go into detail, but basically we ended up in a battered women's shelter, just my mom and I and my twin sister. And at this point, my little sister, my baby sister, was born, and there was a whole lot of drama with that. But we ended up at this shelter with nothing, pretty much, and we had to start all over again. We had to start our lives, and it just felt like losing my dad again. So I went through that loss again, and I have a video where I talk about overcoming loss and daddy issues, and I kind of talk about that there. And so after that, my senior year was when I started dating my daughter's dad, the man that I married at 18. And so I started dating him, and I have a whole video on why I got married at 18, but I got married shortly after I graduated high school. And about a year into the marriage, we were having really serious issues, and I felt like I didn't want to be a repeat of my mom's life. But, you know, of course, I won't go into detail why we got divorced, but there were a lot of issues that I saw, and I didn't have a baby at the time, so I figured it was the perfect time to leave him. And as soon as my mind was made up that I was going to leave and just start my life all over again, I found out I was pregnant. And I found out I was pregnant with my daughter. And so I decided to give it a try. I think most people, when they have a baby or they have a baby on the way with someone, they typically try to make it work for the kids, right? So I didn't want to be a single mom. That was the last thing I wanted. And so I really tried, and I went to counseling, and I did the best I could to be the best wife. And of course, with hormones and everything that went on, things just got worse. Things just did not get better. And I think when I was pregnant, I became more protective. I had that motherly instinct already kicking in where I wanted the best for my daughter. And part of providing the best for her, I wanted the best environment, and I needed to be happy in order for her to be happy. One day, I decided finally to leave when she was a little bit older, well, 4 months old. So when she was about 4 months old, I left, and I quickly jumped into a relationship. And it wasn't a relationship yet officially. It was like a situationship. Y'all know how we do sometimes. But he was a really nice guy, really great guy, but I was struggling because he would talk about marriage, but I had just gotten out of a marriage. I mean, my marriage wasn't even, or my divorce wasn't even finalized, so that was the last thing on my mind. And, you know, we eventually broke up, and I just let loose. I mean, I was just crazy. I was just out of control. I mean, I wasn't doing drugs or anything, but I was just drinking and partying a lot, doing things that I felt like I was missing out on because I got married at such a young age. And then about a year later, I met this really great guy. I allowed myself to be single for a little over a year, and I really was just focusing on me. I was happy. I was in a really good place, but not spiritually. I was wanting that relationship with Jesus, but I wasn't actually doing the work to pursue him more. I believed in God, of course, but I just I didn't have those boundaries set up the way that I should have. And I went with my emotions a lot, of course. So I met this really great guy. He was a police officer at the time, and I just thought he was, I mean, almost perfect. And I knew that I loved him after about a month and a half, which for some people is fast, but I knew that I did, and till this day I'll still say that I did love him, because love is a choice. If you disagree, I'm sorry, but love is a choice, and I was infatuated, but I knew that this was someone that was good. This wasn't a godly man, but he was a good man. So he asked me to move in with him, and at the time I was roommates with my sister. I was going to college, and even though I lived on site, I lived at the property that I worked at, I still was very afraid to go on my own and get my own place by myself, because I've always lived with someone else, and I've always had someone else to go half on the bills with me up until that point. So after talking to some friends and getting some opinions, I decided, why not? I mean, my thought process was, well, we talk about marriage, and I know he wants to marry me, so, and I want my daughter to have her own room. I want to be able to afford the apartment, and he's a really great guy, so why not? I knew that it was wrong according to God's word. I knew that we would be living in sin, but my excuse was, well, we're already living in sin, we were already engaging in sex, so we might as well just move in together. What's the difference? It's just a piece of paper. At the time, I didn't understand what I do now about covenant and so many other things that I've learned. But we moved in together. Things were great. He was the best, cleaning wise and everything. The way he treated me like a queen. So I remember at the beginning of the relationship, he said something about moving to Houston. And, it's one of those things when you meet someone and they express kind of what they would like to do in the future, but I didn't really take him serious. I didn't really think that he was serious about that. And so he ends up taking the job. He accepts the job, and in order to please him, because I wanted that, right? I wanted things to work, and it was either we break up or I move with him. So I made the sacrifice, and I moved without having a plan for a job, without having a job lined up. And we moved and got married that year, or a couple months later we got married. And then about 7 months later, we were having marital issues, and I was very emotional because it was not the life that I imagined. I wanted us to go to church together. I wanted us to the biggest thing was I wanted us to be on the same page spiritually, and I tried to force it, just kind of giving you insight on that. But the day that I was going to celebrate my birthday, he told me that he cheated on me. And it's, for some people, or at least for me, I used to always say, if my husband ever cheats on me, I'm gonna kill him, or I'm gonna kill her. I would think of all these situations of what I would do. And so when he told me, I just literally went into shock. I had no idea what was gonna happen next. And I have a video where I talk about how God provided and I was able to move back home to Dallas. But, it's just, as I sat back and analyzed my life, I realized I had a choice. I could either choose to be a victim and be bitter and just not trust any man that comes my way, or I could go back to my first love, which was Jesus, and try and figure out why I was being divorced a second time, and being divorced twice by 26. And I was entering my 26th birthday with 2 failed marriages under my belt, and I just felt worthless. And so I struggled with that, with my self-esteem, and it wasn't so much the betrayal of, him being unfaithful, but because I was actually willing to forgive. I worked at, trying to figure out a way to make it work, but I think the biggest thing was my daughter. I would never want to be with someone who thinks that me and my daughter are a burden. My daughter and I are a package deal, and I think there's some other things that led us to that decision. It was a mutual decision, but I'm just so grateful because everything that I've been through in my life has taught me a lesson. And I remember one of my friends told me, everything that happens is either a blessing or a lesson. And that's so true, because even though, with what happened with the domestic violence, now I can speak as a child experiencing that. I can give insight on how that negatively impacts children in a violent home. And so now I live my life, and I like to share my story with others to encourage you and tell you that your past does not define you, and I think sometimes the enemy will try to remind you of who you were, and rejection tends to creep in, and oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm getting emotional, but it's a good emotional. I just feel just so blessed and grateful, and I'm actually in the middle of moving into my apartment with just my daughter and I for the first time ever, because I've been living with my family for a year now, and to try and get back on my feet. And this has been the best year ever. I've taken time to enroll into courses online that help with deliverance and with just dealing with those core issues, because I understand that if I were to leave those issues the way that they were, I would not be a good person for anybody. That event last year led me to where I am now. And I'm grateful for that, because now I can share with you all bits of wisdom and just with my own experiences, and in hopes that you will give Jesus an opportunity to enter your heart, because it's the best decision you will ever make. And the more that you know him, the more you want more, and you can never get enough. And I realized that, so many lessons, of course. That's a whole video in itself of things that I've learned. But, I no longer have to try and prove myself to people. Guys, I'll go on a date, and as soon as guys hear that I've been divorced twice, yeah, they really don't care to get to know me more. And that's not everybody, but sometimes we tend to judge a book by its cover, and you don't know how that person has grown or what kind of caused that person to be in that situation. And my biggest lesson is that it's not too late. So even if you know that how you're living right now is not right, you can start today. Today is the day you can make a change, and it starts with you. And maybe take some time to just be completely by yourself. Take some time where it's just you and God, and tell him everything that's on your heart. And another important thing that I learned is community. So surround yourself with like-minded people. And no, correction, not like-minded people, because that may not be a good thing for you. But surround yourself with positive people who encourage you. Maybe you've had the same friends who are just as negative as you, and your life is still the same. So maybe try something different and go out and meet some positive influences, and just watch how your life will change. It starts with you, of course, communicating with God, but ask God to show you where you need to go, what you need to do next, and he will place those people in your life, just like he has always placed my aunt there to save us from that from that toxic home. And just like he placed these great men and women in my life that provided for me and my daughter, or provided for me as a child. So it's amazing the things that God will do when you just surrender. And God is a gentleman. He's knocking at your door. He's not going to just come in without you saying, God, I want you to come in and help me, fix it, Jesus. So anyway, I just wanted to share my story with you. And if your situation, if maybe there's something you could relate to, let me know. If you just need a friend, my email is listed below, and you can follow me on Instagram. So God bless. And if you want to watch more of my videos, just you can subscribe, and then if you select the little bell, you get notified when I upload new videos. So thank you so much for watching. Bye.